Welcome everyone to this webinar, Latin America and Caribbean MET Implementation Support Network meeting. We're just waiting for all of our attendees to log in and dial in from across the region. So we'll just give you about a minute or so to settle in, and then I'll pass you over to our moderator, Hyacinth Armstrong Vaughn from IUCN.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for joining this session with us. My name is Hyacinth Armstrong Vaughn. I am the coordinator of the Biodiversity and Protected Areas Management Program, BIOPAMA, for the Caribbean. I am based in Barbados, and it is really a pleasure to have you join us for this, what we hope will be the beginning of a wonderful relationship in terms of improving our management and governance of protected areas. A few housekeepings. So my colleague indicated that we do have interpretation available in French and in Spanish. So if you look at the bottom of your screen, you should be able to see the ability to add interpretation. And so you will select the language that you want to hear the proceedings in. So you have the option to hear English, French, or Spanish. So you will select that button to be able to hear the proceedings. We are recording the session as well, so we will hopefully be able to share the recording with you once we have finalized everything and the proceedings have been completed. In terms of contributing to this session, so it's not a talk shop on our side. We are hoping to have you engaged and contributing as much as possible to the process. So we have a question and answer function. Again, that is also at the bottom of your screen. So if you have any very specific questions to the presentations that were made, you can put your questions in there. And we will have, towards the end, a general discussion element. You are welcome to use the Q&A function for that as well. Or you can also raise your hand and we will unmute your microphone so that you can contribute in that way. So the purpose of this meeting is to discuss the potential establishment of a network for supporting the implementation of the management effectiveness tracking tool. Within our region, the Latin America and the Caribbean region, we have used the MET tool to assess protected area management effectiveness. It's probably the most widely used tool. And we have had, through the BIOPAMA program, interactions with many of you in the protected area realm and through IUCN across the Latin America region in the implementation of this tool, and recognizing that it is not an easy, while it is a relatively easy tool to implement, the process is still a little challenging. And so the interest to have a support network was raised when we had numerous conversations across with colleagues across the region, and specifically in a session that was held back in January. So we are taking the opportunity to build on some of the momentum that has been taking place within the region, especially around the discussions of the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, where the 30 by 30 goal is and target is being negotiated, but will potentially come into force at the COP. Management effectiveness will continue to be an element that will need to be measured as countries move towards achieving these goals. So the BIOPAMA program is taking the initiative to start a process where we hope we can establish a network within the Latin America and Caribbean region to support our colleagues on the front line of biodiversity conservation in implementing and applying this tool and the recommendations that come out of the assessments. So our focus today would be, first of all, to give you a short presentation that gives you some background to this process. And then we want to dive into what the actual network could look like and get your feedback so that we can have a concrete way forward in how we can establish the network. So again, as I said, feel free to engage, please. This is not our unidirectional, or this is not meant to be unidirectional in terms of our engagement. So we do welcome you in being active participants in this session. So I am going to turn over at this point in time to my colleague, Jose Kuro, who will give you the first presentation that we have planned. And it's basically to give you some background on the METT process and why we're here and where we hope to go. So Jose, over to you.
Thank you, Hyacinth, and good morning, everybody. Buen día. Due to the logistical arrangements we have in the webinar, I'll be speaking in English, and I will try to do it slowly with appreciation of our interpreters with the help they are providing us. So the purpose of this presentation is to give you some background on how we got here at the point of proposing or finding the need for this support network, a network of people, practitioners and people implementing METT. In the first place, well, most of us know that METT has been around for 20 years around the world. It has been used widely in Latin America and the Caribbean. In checking quickly in the GDPAME, or the Global Database on Protected Area Management Effectiveness, the World Database on Protected Areas, I found over 500 assessments that have taken place in Latin America and the Caribbean, and understanding that not all the assessments that have been completed have been reported or are recorded in the protected areas or in the global database. So it has been, like Hyacinth stated, a popular tool to use, and it has been promoted for different reasons, and it has had an evolution. The original purpose was to measure a one-time limited conservation target. Now it has become the most widely used tool to measure protected area management effectiveness, and it has been applied thousands of times around the world. Originally was to provide feedback on projects implemented in forest protected areas with a few questions that needed to be answered to reflect the impact of the investment on the management of the sites, mostly forested protected areas. And this demand of the GEF to use the tool in all their protected area projects provided a big jump, a push in the uptake of the METT around the world. In Latin America and the Caribbean is not exception. Is usually run as a qualitative assessment. And so it means that it relies largely on the judgment of and honesty of the assessors, the people present in the assessment. And it has been from the beginning promoted as a participatory approach that engages different stakeholders in the assessment, the follow-up, and the implementation of recommendations emerging from the assessment. It is expected to be a simple, cheap, and flexible tool. This should be as useful to provide a quick overview of the effectiveness of the areas, and it shouldn't require expensive consultants or too much time for the people responsible for the protected areas. There was a proto-MET original version that was applied in 16 protected areas in 2001, responding to the needs of a particular project. It was called the proto-MET because it was sort of a first arrangement on how to measure impact of the project on those forested protected areas. In 2002, it was published more formally, and it became the MET-1, version 1 of the MET, officially published by WWF. Based on the results emerging from the implementation of the MET in several sites around the world, led to find needs to incorporate new aspects that were being required by the sites as feedback from the implementation. And that produced a new version in 2005 that was known as the MET2, and started including standardized list of threats based on an early iteration of the unified classification of threats that was produced by the Conservation Measures Partnership, or CMP. That list of threats is still available online. Then WWF funded a more detailed review of the MET implementation in 2007, and this produced a new version known as the MET3, published in 2007. And among the revisions included are addition of a standardized threat assessment, a scoring disclaimer, and the section for explanation or comments for each scoring or each of the questions, and also provided a wider focus of the assessment. Then the version 4 or MET4 was completed and published in 2021, and it incorporates more detailed analysis of the protected area values, the threats, as well as questions on climate change and adaptation. This is the newest version. It's included, one of the main changes is the stop being a questionnaire only and became an Excel file that provides several benefits for the implementation of the tool, such as the one that you have to complete the whole assessment and you cannot pick and choose the questions that you want to fill out. And always providing an option for questions that do not apply for a particular site or a particular assessment. It is estimated to date that the MET has been used in around 5,000 protected areas that represent around 4.2 million square kilometers in 127 countries around the world. This is very significant regarding the impact of the MET in its implementation. In more recent developments in Latin America and the Caribbean, apologies, there's a helicopter flying by. Hard to avoid these interruptions. In January of this year, we participated in an international exchange of MET implementation in Latin America and the Caribbean. This event was promoted by CERNAM in Peru, the Protected Area Agency, and as well as project and consultants supporting the implementation of the MET in Peru. And this is probably one of the best examples to date in a region of an institutionalized uptake of the MET for national implementation. And we are really looking forward to the lessons learned from the Peru experience and into implementing the adapted version of the MET. Looking forward to this. In this event, we had presenters from Antigua and Barbuda, Belize, Jamaica, St. Lucia, Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, Ecuador, Venezuela, and Peru, in addition to around 200 attendants that participated of the event. The main goals were to share experiences and lessons learned about the implementation and use of the MET with managers of protected areas in Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as awake the interest or explore the interest of a network of contacts with managers of protected areas that implement the MET in LAC in Latin America and the Caribbean. Some of the main conclusions of the event the MET implementation requires documentation of protected area management. And so the protected areas need to improve documentation of the management, providing means of verification of evidence of their management so that the scoring of the MET can be supported with reliable, credible, robust evidence. It allows to generate discussions with different groups about how the protected area management is doing. This is important and it complies with the participatory approach required for the tool implementation. It can be used to justify the investments on aspects with low marks, with low scores. So protected area agencies need to learn more about it, how to use the MET results, the assessments results to organize, prioritize investments, budgeting, and so on, and even up to proposal drafting for sites on topics that need improvement because they get low scores in the assessments. The MET4 also aligns, based on the implementation, aligns with the green list standard, which is very good and very important for those sites that are planning to nominate their sites for the green list process. Also, the MET is an easy tool to use, but it requires a guide to facilitate its implementation, especially for new staff. And my experience have shown me that we regularly have new staff in the protected area agencies, basically also influenced with political changes. So the need of a guide and ongoing training is important, particularly if countries adapt the tool and make specific versions for their countries, and then the capacity development in a guide to understand the questions and the process, it needs to be provided. Also, it allows the standardization of the evaluation for the protected areas of a country. Like I mentioned, the example of how Peru is doing, and it's a case point. There are other countries that have done this in the world, and but not necessarily in our region. Also, it allows to document progress and aspects that need to be improved in management. That's the main purpose. Generates information for the management processes, for management planning, for operational planning, for business planning, or even for thematic planning in the protected area. Also, in order to improve objectivity, the implementation needs to be participatory of different stakeholders. It can be adapted to build a national tool, like I mentioned before. Also, the tool needs to be officially recognized by the protected area agency in order to secure implementation. And the protected areas need to learn more about incorporating the climate change and adaptation questions. How are we going to respond to these questions? What evidence do we have? or what evidence do we need to generate to support the scoring of those questions. This is my presentation, and I hope that it helped to provide some background of what brings us to this point of discussing this support network for Latin America and the Caribbean. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Jose. We have one question in the Q&A, and I invite others to please, if you have any questions following Jose's presentation, you can type them in the Q&A, or you are welcome to raise your hand. Jose, this question is from Anciano Davis, and it's asking, with the different versions, have there been assessments of which parts are most used? So I'm assuming this is the different versions of the MET.
Yes. Yes, thank you, Hyacinth, for pointing out this question. Yes, I don't think there has been an assessment comparing the versions. There have been assessments of versions. For instance, version 1 and 2 mainly, and maybe 3 if I'm not mistaken. There have been separate studies taking place, sort of reviews of the implementation and how the key aspects of protected area management have been useful to the protected areas in that particular time. Now, those studies provided the justification to build up the following version. And that's what we have so far. And I would actually invite Ann Sileno to think on the possibility of doing that assessment across the board in Latin America and the Caribbean. It hasn't been done. What has been the benefit of these different versions in protected area management where it has been implemented, or they have been implemented from the version 1 through the 4. We don't have that yet. I haven't seen it. Maybe somebody has done it. I haven't seen it published anywhere so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose. Anceleno, does that answer your question? Well, I hope it does. Are there any other questions from Jose's presentation?
I think there's another one from Anceleno. And it says, for those of us without access to Excel, is it possible to use it in CSV? I think so. I think it can be used in Word and also in paper. The only thing is that in both paper and Word, it loses the algorithms that allow the analysis of the information, for instance, for the graphs that are included, or for moving actions recommended on each question that are moved to another spreadsheet within the Excel and start building sort of an operational plan for the protected area. So this optimization in the Excel will be lost and you will not have it, but it's possible to do it. In fact, you can copy all the questions into a Word document and print it on paper and use it as a regular questionnaire. Just considering that it will have those limitations. I hope this answered the question. And Sileno, otherwise, let us know. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose. I did miss seeing that question. So are there any other questions? Okay, I see one coming into the chat. Is it possible to translate the MET to your own language?
Yes, I would. Thank you for asking this question. In the most recent version that is being worked right now for the Excel, it's being built in with a new format. I don't know how to explain it. I'm not expert in Excel, but it will provide the option of translating the repeat or the common text in the different tabs of the spreadsheet to be translated into any language. But only the text that is repeated, instructions and observations and so on, that are repeated across the tabs of the spreadsheet it will be possible to translate in almost all the main languages in the world. Now the specific text, that will have to be done by hand, one by one, depending on the case. But at least the generic information or text will be translatable. And I haven't seen that version yet, but I know who's doing it, and I will contact them and see how they're doing in building up this new version of the Excel, not new version of the MET, but the Excel. And I can get back to whoever asked the question. Thank you.
Thank you. That was from SIS Vincent. And so the new version of the MET that we are calling, it's actually the MET 4, which is available through the Protected Planet website. And I will go online and find that link for you so you can actually learn more about the new version that we are referring to, which is in an Excel format. And it has been translated to some languages, not all. But that's the version that we are referring to when we say the new MET. Are there any other questions or any comments at this point? No? Okay. All right. So thank you, Jose. So where we want to go to now is, so my assumption is that you're all in this call, all of you in this call have had some type of relationship with the MET tool. And we are keen to see how we can develop a support network for the implementation of this tool. So we in the BIOPAMA Caribbean team, recognizing the need, we have developed what we will consider a draft terms of reference to guide how the network could function. So my colleague, Justin Springer, will give you a brief introduction to this terms of reference. And the idea here is we really want your input and guidance. The network is only as good as the participation in it. So after Justin's presentation, we are really open to hearing your thoughts on what we have presented. If you have suggestions on how we, what else we can do or what else we should do, that is the direction that we would like to take the conversation in. So I would open the floor to Justin at this point in time, since there are no more questions, and ask him to present on the terms of reference, and then we will open up the floor. So as Justin presents, if you have questions, again, use the Q&A chat, or we will also have the opportunity for you to just raise your hand and ask or make your contribution directly. Okay, Justin, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Hyacinth, for the introduction. And pleasant good afternoon, good morning to everyone across the world, wherever you are. Welcome to this presentation. My name is Justin Springer, and I'm the technical assistant on the BIOPAMA program. Can everyone see my screen here clearly?
It's visible, yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, so as Hyacinth would have alluded to earlier, and thank you, Jose, for setting the context for my presentation. We have prepared a draft terms of reference that would set the tone or define the structure for what a MET support network would look like. As Hyacinth alluded to earlier, this would have come from several discussions that we've had across the region with protected area agencies and staff, across Latin America and the Caribbean, both last year and this year in January, when we had the International MET Exchange. We had several countries ranging from Peru, Ecuador, Venezuela, Saint Lucia, across the Caribbean, even to Jamaica, Saint Vincent, and the Grenadines, who would have expressed an interest in forming a support network as we, the BIOPAMA program, would have engaged with them over a period of time and applying protected area management assessments. We sought to see how we could establish this network to strengthen both protected area management and governance. So the general purpose of this network essentially aims to provide a space or a forum where users and practitioners of the MET from across Latin America and the Caribbean can share their experiences while using the MET tool. We understand that from our engagements previously, the MET tool can seem complicated at first. It can seem daunting with its range of questions and the scoring. And therefore, there are several persons who have different levels of capacity in using the tool. And we see that it can also be adapted to a specific country or a specific protected area. And everyone has their successes and they have their challenges. But in our engagements, we found that there were many people using the MET across the region in very interesting and unique ways. And that those sessions were able to bring to light a lot of the successes that persons had, and therefore other members could pull and draw from those stories to see how they could use those things to implement the MET in a better or a more effective way in their particular context. Therefore, the space that we want to create ideally would provide a forum that persons can share freely and openly from their experiences, having access to technical support on MET implementation across the region. Fundamentally, we would like to be able to build the capacity and develop the capacity on best practices for using the MET successfully across the region, and utilize a lot of the recommendations coming out of these meetings so that persons can then use the MET in a more effective way. In terms of the network coordination, the BIOPAMA Caribbean team, which includes Jose, Hyacinth, and myself, will lead the coordination and the operation of the network for the duration of the BIOPAMA program, which extends to June 2023. Of course, while we will lead the coordination of the network, it is envisaged that other organizations are welcomed and they're invited to participate and support us, the Caribbean team, in the implementation of the network for this period. And certainly, we hope that it would not end in 2023, but certainly from a sustainability perspective, we hope that it can continue on past 2023, continue to grow and expand and provide support to members across the Caribbean region. So what is the criteria for joining or participating in the network in terms of membership, the application process? I know many persons may have various questions about how this will work. So while we do not have anything that is set in stone at this stage, as this is a draft in terms of reference, and certainly we would like your feedback as well, the idea is that we will have a membership questionnaire which seeks to identify certain areas of persons who seek to join this network. So certainly we would like to know your name, what country you're from, your organization, the type of organization, whether it's an NGO or a government agency. We know that there are multiple agencies working in the protected area management space, and therefore it'd be interesting to get this information. Also, what is your interest in the network? What is your reason for joining? And also, what potential contribution you believe that you can make towards the network? Within this form, which will more than likely be a Google form or type form that we're now exploring, we seek to gain an idea of your experiences and your exposure to the METT tool. You know, where have you used it? How have you used it? And therefore we can get a better sense of the value that you can bring towards the group. Ideally, we would like that persons who are members of the group have worked or have some level of experience within the Latin American and Caribbean region. For context, because we understand that as a region, we have various components that are very unique to these areas. The Caribbean as islands, the South America, Central America region, Latin America region has its context as well. And therefore the challenges that we face, the experiences that we have at a protected area level and national level have similarities, and they also have variations. And therefore it is envisaged that persons who are part of this network bring a level of experience from the region that they can share those experiences amongst others. Ideally, members should be willing to actively engage in group discussions and in the sessions that we will have. You know, sometimes, often or not, networks or groups start out very active. Everyone is eager, they're attentive, they're engaging. But after a time, sometimes persons can fall back, engagement decreases, people are desensitized. But we hope that through this network, there will be active engagement where persons contribute to discussions, they participate in sessions, they attend meetings, and we can definitely see benefits through this network. And it's not just a figurehead or a body that is not functioning. So what is the platform that we intend to use? So currently, the Caribbean Protected Areas Gateway, which is the reference information system, the regional reference information system for the BIOPAMA Caribbean program, is basically an online database that seeks to house biodiversity data, protected areas data, and all data related to biodiversity and protected areas within this region. We have formed, the CPAG has formed a Facebook group, and you can find that at the CPAG, THECPAG on Facebook for those who are members of Facebook, where you can see several updates on protected areas and the work that we are doing. Now, as part of the Facebook app, you can create subgroups. And therefore, what we intend to do is create a subgroup that persons who are active on Facebook can feel free to join. And that's the platform that we are currently thinking of utilizing. Because Facebook is widely used across the world, many of us would already have Facebook accounts. And therefore, we believe that this would be a more easy or efficient way to start the group. However, we are open to suggestions from other persons about other platforms that can be utilized. But for the time being, we are interested and focused on using the Facebook group. So in terms of roles and responsibilities, of course, everybody, every group must have structure, they must have rules, they must have roles as persons engage each other. And the idea is that the coordination body would manage the space for network management. We will receive and review all membership applications, whether by the Google form or otherwise. And then we will facilitate the coordination of capacity development sessions by group members, whether they be informal meetings, whether they be workshops. We intend to coordinate these responsibilities amongst ourselves so that persons can be engaged effectively. So as a member of this network, what do you have to commit to? Ideally, the members should commit to attending scheduled network group meetings, championing or identifying new members who they recognize that may be in the protected area space, may have challenges with using the METT, or they may have questions, or any person that you think that the network can offer support to, we would encourage you as a member to share the benefits of the network and also encourage them to join, because with the increase in members, you expand the experience that's in the group, and therefore many of us can benefit from each other's knowledge. Ideally, as stated before, we would encourage persons to contribute to the capacity development sessions where required. In terms of meetings, so the meetings for the network, ideally we would have these meetings would be chaired by a representative from the coordination body. Ideally they would be held virtually, because we understand that all of us are located across the region in different parts of the world, and therefore the virtual format would be the most feasible at this stage. Ideally, we were also thinking of a time period at which to meet. We understand that many of us are busy professionals with our own respective jobs and lives, and therefore a virtual meeting of at least every 6 months is what we envisioned, where we have a period of time that we can develop sessions, we can prepare for sessions, and can attend. We believe that a 6-month interval between meetings is a bit more feasible than meeting on a more regular basis. However, if we determine through discussions and other persons see it fit that we may need to meet on a more regular basis for smaller topics or other meetings, we can adjust and work to suit. If required, as stated before, we have subgroup meetings to address particular issues. The coordination and development, capacity development sessions, or technical support for the specific site or national level topics, we can arrange these at a time that's convenient to subgroup members. So that is the end of the presentation. I am sure you may have many questions. Feel free to type your questions in the chat. And as Hyacinth is here now, we will turn over to her to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, so Justin, I'll ask you to keep your presentation up if that's fine.
Sure.
Because I will use it to guide the discussion. So we can go back to the beginning.
Beginning, okay.
Yeah. All right, so this is what we have put together as our terms of reference for this network. So I don't know if there are any initial reactions from persons. I haven't seen any comments or questions coming in. So I guess if you do have any initial reactions or you want to make an initial comment, please feel free to raise your hand. So this is where we need engagement and your inputs. This is what we see, at least this is what we envision, but it's not our vision alone. So we do welcome, and we do need actually your inputs to guide us on how we should move forward. So don't be shy. Okay, so Esaias has raised his hand. Can we give him can we unmute his microphone?
I think it was an old one, but according to my question, if the METT could be translated to your language. For instance, in our country, Suriname, we use mostly Dutch, and we have worked for the past 2 years. We have worked with a METT that was written in English, and we translate it by Dutch, and I think it worked effectively. That is on my only comment that I have.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for that. So Suriname is using it and you have translated it into Dutch. So it has been effective for you in that process.
Yes, yeah, but we use the same terms that is written in English.
Okay. Can I ask, have you reported what organization are you with, if I may ask?
Hyacinth, yeah, I think you don't know me anymore, but I'm from the
I know, I
Nature
remember.
Conservation-
I remember. But for the benefit of our colleagues,
I'm from the Nature Conservation Division.
say that again. It didn't come through clearly for me.
Yes, I'm from the Nature Conservation Division.
Nature Conservation Division in Suriname. Yes. All right. Well, it's good to know that it's being used and you're able to translate. We would be open to supporting you in translating that further into action through this network, if possible. So thank you, Isaias. Are there any other comments to the terms of reference, initial comments? No? All right, Justin, oh, yes, Jose, go ahead.
I just wanted to add to the presentation that I'm particularly interested in the capacity development sessions, and we have discussed to schedule them for every 3 or 4 months period, so that the network could have some 3 or 4 events in the year, every year. And some of the original topics that we have seen as interesting for the network emerged from the exchange we had in January, from some of the challenges identified by the presenters. And so we need to hear also from the network, either today or after today, once we have the online presence available, which issues are being faced by sites, by managers, by practitioners and countries, protected area agencies, so that we can build up the program of capacity development for follow-up sessions, for future meetings and so on. So this interaction with everybody is extremely important. Instead of us identifying which topics should be addressed, is better if the network says what are the topics that are needed. Thank you.
Thanks, Jose. I see a comment coming in the chat. Okay, it's in Spanish. Jose, can you translate for the benefit of our colleagues, please?
Yes, Mr. Marco Arenas from Suriname, Peru, kindly tells that likewise they remain interested in Suriname, and since now they offer the commitment as a government agency and also as himself as a person in participating in the network, and the best platform used for the network will be developed as part of the process. But we need to move the community of practice. We need to move forward with the community of practice. And muchas gracias, Marco. Thank you for your contribution.
Thank you very much, Marco. I agree. So then let's take this approach. Justin, if we can go through each slide, and I will ask if there are any comments or questions on it. So this opening slide is just basically giving us background to why the network exists. Please, next slide.
Hyacinth, I think there's a new comment from Saul Cruz.
Oh. Yes. So Saul says that this is a great initiative. There may be need for some flexibility in bringing in new and non-expert persons or PA managers. Yes, agreed. So countries will also need to develop an experience documentation process as well. Yes, that would be an interesting direction to take. I think some countries are more, what's the word, organized, I guess, than others when it comes to the application of management effectiveness, and in particular the tools. But this could be something that the network can support or support the development of, a way for countries to start to document the experience within the country as well as across the region. So yes, that is very...
This particular topic, Hyacinth, on development, the documentation, evidence of the management, it might well be a topic for capacity development, where we hear from case studies that have learned to do it very well. You know, some best practices and so on, because, and I'm not exaggerating, this is a cultural change. It is a new way to do management where we can respond to any queries, any questions on what we're doing with management with information. And this makes our management that, and I have to say, it's not because of bad intentions or anything, it's just lack of practice, that we can be more transparent on the things we're doing in our protectors, and also demonstrating that we're doing the work. It's not like something becomes invisible, although we did it, nobody heard about it. We couldn't demonstrate it. There is no memory of the management that we provided over a certain event. In this case, will be different. So we will learn to document and be disciplined about this. There's another Spanish comment here by
Marco. Arias.
Marco again. Yeah. Another Marco.
Another Marco, yeah.
From Honduras, my dear friend Marco, what will be the process to be able to adapt some of the aspects of the tool to each country? Well, I think Marco Arenas answered below there regarding this question from Marco Carillas, that this is the purpose of this network. Yes, to share experiences and how it has been adapted by countries and sites. Absolutely correct, Marco and Marco Arenas and Marco Carillas. Yes, that is the purpose of the network, and present some of the cases that are already happening in a region like Peru, how they adapted their tool to their needs and how they're implementing it. Are you interested in the whole tool and making a full adaptation, or are you interested in components of the tool that you would like to adapt? And that certainly will be one of the subjects to discuss in capacity development, like Saul Cruz correctly points out there in his comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and Isaias has made another comment as well, and is it possible as well to give some more training according to the use of the MET and to make a report after talking with stakeholders? I'm glad you raised this one, Isaias. So that's something that the BIOPAMA program has been working on through the Caribbean Protected Areas Gateway. As Jose said, we do these assessments, we have these results. Then what? Especially to those that are reliant on the resources that we are managing. We do have a report template, so an official report template that can be completed that will now take the results from the Excel or Word document or whatever format you have the results in, and transpose that into something that makes more sense. So so we have a report format that allows you to give the context of the protected area, explain what the results mean for the protected area and its management. And then we now also have what we will call a communications tool, a report card format, which allows you to present the results in an even more attractive way. So these are some things that were recently developed, and I say recently within the last 6 months within the BIOPAMA program, that we would make available through the network, because we recognize that a lot of work has been done and a lot of work is being done, But in order for us to be able, and I say us as protected area managers, practitioners, to be able to express and articulate our needs to our donors, especially, and our decision makers, those that are making the decisions on our behalf, the information needs to be presented in a way that they can understand and digest and, you know, say, hey, they're actually doing what they said they're doing. So let's give the support where it's needed. Yes, the report card would be made available. I would say it would be made available through the Caribbean Protected Areas Gateway. I'm not sure yet if it's there because I think we still needed to do a little bit of tweaking, but for the most part, the template is ready. So that is something that would, I think, be available through the network for sure. Okay, so Junior has to leave, but he's with the Water Resources Management Agency in St. Lucia. He's indicated that he would like to see more on the water quality within the protected areas. So within the assessment tool, there isn't an assessment specific to water quality, but it does come into play, I guess, depending on the area that is being assessed. There are assessments that need to be done. So for example, I think the threat assessment is probably where water quality would come into play. But again, water quality is a sensitive issue in most of our countries. They don't necessarily want to have that information put out in the public domain. So again, this is something that, how do we deal with potentially sensitive information that would come out of these types of assessments? Again, I'm sure this is not a new issue, and it would be interesting to hear from the network how countries have dealt with this.
Hyacinth, I also just wanted to jump in and support your comment. I think in conducting assessments, one of the common challenges that we see is the whole idea of data acquisition and data management. And sometimes where we need data on water quality or biodiversity or threats, sometimes it's a challenge for agencies to acquire all of the necessary documents that would inform the assessment. So I think if the network sees it fit as a critical area for support, we could potentially look at or explore kind of keys or tools to data acquisition, you know, what types of data you would need to have to inform METT assessments in terms of the capacity building sessions. I also saw Saul Cruz had a question about if we have an outline of the capacity development areas that we may see as a priority.
Right, I saw that as well. So actually, Saul, that is something that we want to be able to get out, hopefully, out of this session. We know that there's a lot of scope for where capacity development can go. But we would like to have an idea of, first of all, what those areas are, and then honestly let the network decide what would be the priority areas that we focus on, because there are many areas that we can address. So that is something that we would like to be able to, if not get a final decision on it at the end of this session, start the discussion and hopefully evolve it through the network discussions to start to determine what are the capacity development areas and where are the priorities for the network. We do not want to set the priority areas. We would like the network members to do that. With respect to the report card, yes. So Saul, we can probably liaise with you through the Caribbean Protected Areas Gateway and colleagues in Belize to see how the national assessment that was done in 2019 could be translated to the report card. I think our colleagues from the Gateway are on in the persons of Dr. Julian Walcott, who is the technical officer. So I am helping him take note of this as something that we can follow up on. Jose, there's a comment from Dilmar Claros. The question is,
Yes.
I don't want to
if they're going to have access to people who are to be members of the network, as well as their contact information.
right. So again, I think this is, so Justin, if you could go to the page where we said how we wanted to set up the network. So Facebook, yeah, go back to the Facebook. I will use your question, Dilmar, to kind of segue into this part of the terms of reference. So while we may not want to share persons' personal information unless they give permission, the platform that we use would allow you to have some level of access to those persons. So we proposed Facebook as the mechanism for supporting the network, recognizing that it's hopefully a relatively widely used network. So, and in this case, it's a social network. So it should be able to facilitate the level of engagement that we are looking for. But as we said, we are open to other suggestions or other mechanisms that may prove to be more useful or more effective in facilitating the network engagement. So the ability to share information, to have dialogue on particular issues, to have dialogue with individuals or groups of individuals. So I guess I will ask this question first of all, is Facebook a good tool to use at this stage for setting up the network? I guess if you agree, a raise of hands would probably be the easiest way to show consensus if this is the way that you think we should go. Since we can't unmute all of you. So I see 4 hands raised so far from the attendees. So raise your hand if you agree that Facebook is the mechanism that we should use right now for advancing the network. All right, so I have 15 persons. So I guess those who did not want to vote, it's neither here nor there, or you'll wait to see how things progress. So we would aim to use the Caribbean Protected Areas Gateways Facebook page and create a group within there to establish the network. Again, though, as we move forward, if there are any other suggestions or any other options that come up, then I guess that is something that we would put to the network to make a decision on. Okay, so hands are still raised. Is this in relation to this question, or do you want to make a direct contribution?
I think Rafika presented a message there that we can consider also LinkedIn.
Ah, okay. I am not sure how to use LinkedIn for that. So I'm not, so I will say this, I personally am not a social network guru. So I would be relying on all of you who do use social network to guide how we should do this. But I will engage as I need to in that process. But in terms of determining what platform works, you guys definitely need to guide us on that. All right, so let's start with Facebook to begin with. And if we go back just into the previous slide. So what we propose in terms of persons joining the network, so the information that we will gather is going to be kept private because we do not want to be sharing persons' personal information without their permission. So in terms of the membership, or at least how to become a member of the network, the information that we're capturing in that, I guess what you call an application form, is basically basic information: who you are, where you're based, the organization you work with, the organization type. We indicate that as optional, but we'd like to get a sense of where persons are, operating out of. That helps us to understand, I guess, to a certain degree, some of the needs, who are the players in the field, and so on. Of course, your interest and reason for joining, what you can contribute to the process, and so on. So, I mean, really and truly nothing major to join, but what I would say is really going to be key is the engagement. The networks definitely need to be, persons really need to be engaged, asking questions, contributing, and so on. I am seeing that LinkedIn is, so we will explore what LinkedIn could do for the network as well. As I said, I am not familiar with how to use either Facebook or LinkedIn for facilitating a network of this kind. But we will explore what LinkedIn can look like. And again, the Caribbean Protected Areas Gateway does have a LinkedIn profile. So we can explore what that could be for the network. So
Hyacinth, one thing on the information of the network members, I think we in the form we should ask if people are in agreement of sharing their information in the network, and if they click on that box, and then we can periodically, once or twice a year, report membership with contact information. Another benefit of the network would also be the possibility of start identifying practitioners who we could start seeing as experts over time for consultation on specific topics of the MET in our region. So having this will be very beneficial. And I know there will be people either from government agencies or NGOs and so on, who will be more than happy to help other places in the region in progressing the implementation. Thank you.
Thanks, Jose. Okay, so we will add that in. I think that's a good idea. All right, I am considerate of time. And so let me see, I'm just gonna go through the chat to make sure I didn't miss any comments.
There's a question from Lilith Richards as it relates to the tool. And it says, I see that this works mostly for biodiversity sites. Can it be adopted for the built heritage as well? Or is there already a component for the built environment?
Jose, do you want to take
Jose?
a step at that? Did you hear that question?
Yes, I'm looking at it. I would suggest to look at the Enhancing Our Heritage tool, particularly the newest version that is being built by IUCN and ICOMOS and ICRAM, that it integrates variables of nature and culture, world heritage for assessing management effectiveness. I think that would be probably a better fit for this request on built heritage. and I'll be happy to provide more information if needed. So Lilith, let me know if you want to learn about this, or if you have contacts with ICOMOS and ICRM, I'm sure they can help you as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Jose. If it is, you can type in the chat the two organizations you mentioned. I think that would also be useful for.
I'm going for that.
All right. Okay, so Marco also responded and saying, muy buena pregunta, very good question. We applied in Machu Picchu, where they have mixed conditions, and also in the Las Reservas Paisajísticas, which is a Category 5 protected area, and it also has socioeconomic, social ecosystems. Did I do that? No. All right. Gracias, Marco. Okay, so let's go through just in one more, go forward in the slides. I just want to make sure we cover. Okay, so I just want to explain this part here again. So the BIOPAMA program officially goes to June 2023. So that is why we have this time frame in terms of the coordination of the network. But if BIOPAMA does, we are looking at a no-cost extension. So if we do get through with that, then we would be able to support the network for a little longer. But at this stage, we can go until June 2023. But we also welcome between now and that time other organizations and persons. So I guess as the network evolves, as it develops, we invite other organizations to take an active role in the coordination process. Okay. Let's go to the other slide, Justin. Let's go forward. You went backwards. All right, so in terms of meetings, I don't think we need to define this anymore. I think what I would like to use this slide to segue into is probably bringing Jose back in to kind of wrap up and help us start to identify what are some of the capacity development areas that we want to focus our some of our efforts on in the time that we have between now and June 2023 to begin with within the forum, because I think that is where I think most of the interest lies. So Jose, can I turn over to you to start that process? And as I said, we would like to have some ideas of where we need to go with capacity development in terms of topics or themes. So please be open. We got some already earlier in the chat, but please feel free to indicate what you see as your needs, as your priority needs. And hopefully based on frequency, we can determine what we can focus on as priority. So I'll turn over to Jose at this point.
Thank you, Hyacinth. I think that it has been a good discussion and some very valuable feedback that we have received regarding next steps. And as I said before, we can schedule meetings, thematic meetings of the network every 3 or 4 months. And the next one, or the first one, I think it would be important to address, like it was suggested in the chat, a METT 101, like a beginner's session on what is MET and how it is used, and particularly focusing on MET 4, which is the current version. Have an introductory session on MET, and also start between now and then, receive feedback from the network, which is us in the session right now, regarding other topics, and be able to build up or to have ready for this first session, capacity development, to have a schedule for year one on content, the capacity development sessions, and having this introductory session as a first event of the network, also to introduce the membership or who have signed up officially with the form, and also to present the platform that we will be using, either if it's Facebook or Facebook and LinkedIn or any other. So we can introduce that as well in that session. Following up 3 or 4 months after that, on session 2, we can start addressing thematic aspects. First, I would think a first one, as it was mentioned in the chat, is the documentation of management, creating, organizing evidence or means of verification for each of the questions, bring some case studies that will be of particular interest. I forgot to mention that for session 1, I'm planning to invite Peru to present their experience of introducing and adapting the MET for the CERNAM. This I'm bringing now, and I apologize, Marco, for bringing this so suddenly, but we are, if you're in agreement, we would like to have the presentation from CERNAM on their experience, along with the introductory session on MET. So as I was saying, on the second session, to address documentation, means of verification for the different questions, and have some examples of how sites have addressed some of the question, and have feedback, particularly on the new questions incorporated on MET 4, that will give light to the network membership on how to organize, if they haven't done so, the documentation, all the different questions. I think that will take a whole session, and be open to questions and recommendations from everybody in the network. And this is very important that we all participate in these sessions, even if we already know MET, and you don't think you need the introductory session on MET 4, you might benefit yourself from listening to the experience of Peru, and see what challenges they face and how they address that. And thank you, Marco, because I already saw your comment accepting to present in the upcoming session. Thank you. So I think those two will be taken care of, and that will be for most of this year. The scheduling, I think 2 sessions, 3-4 months difference between them. We may have other ones. Sorry?
Can I ask you to mute your microphone, please? Or Ruchir, can you mute him?
Yeah, Sondra Fashion.
Sure.
Thank you.
So if the need emerges to have an additional session in the year, we will consider it. And we just don't want to be a burden, or to have too many events during the year, because I know everybody's busy. We want to keep you interested in the network and receiving benefits from it. And also I would say everybody is welcome to join on building up the topics of the capacity development sessions with your cases, with your examples, your experience. You just have to let us know if there's anything that you have that you would like to share once the topics of the sessions are scheduled and identified. Everybody's welcome to contribute. So those, I would suggest those two. These are suggestions. I'm happy to change what I have proposed if you have better ideas than the ones presented. So thank you for that for now. And that will take care of the scheduling for this year. So next year we'll have more, God willing. So we look forward to others, the other sessions. As we move along on the new sessions, we will be bringing news on the following sessions so that first we can schedule in our agendas, in our busy agendas, to save dates, and then also to assess the possibility of contributing on one or more sessions, depending on our interest. That will be from me, Hyacinth. So far, I will rather get more feedback from the participants.
Thanks, Jose. Yes, so I have asked the participants, if you can, in the time that we have left, to please add your thoughts on additional areas for us to cover in capacity development. So,
Hyacinth, Dilmar is asking me if we have the form already available. We don't.
Not yet.
But we will,
No.
right?
We didn't want to get ahead of ourselves. So after this meeting, we will create the mechanism for persons to join. So the fact that you are in this session, you registered for the work for this webinar, we will be using your registration details to get the word out to you that the network platform is set up and available for persons to start joining. So we will do that, I would say within the next few weeks, once we are able to figure out LinkedIn and Facebook or whatever, whichever one we use. And we will definitely put that out for you. I think we will add, probably add in that as well, what you think your training needs would be. So that would be another option for us to capture some of the capacity development needs. So Saul is saying that the training activities will need to be documented and the outlines and the content to help with continuity of the program. Yes, agreed. So yes. I think we have come to the point in the webinar where we, I think, have exhausted at this stage all that we wanted to present to you. Thank you very much for your engagement, for your interaction with us. It's not the end, this is the beginning. So we definitely look forward to having all of you who were able to join us and all of you who were not able to connect with us at this point, joining us in not just the establishment, but now the actual functioning of this network for Latin America and the Caribbean. And I would say we're very happy to be able to span the region. We tend to work in, unfortunately, and I think more because of language, we are isolated from each other, but we are a collective group working on the same issues and we are stronger together. So we're looking forward to seeing how we can, within this remainder of this year, create this network and have our effective management of our protected areas and other effective area-based conservation measures and all of those other terms that we use for our protected spaces, start to work on improving those. So thank you all very much for your time. I appreciate you taking the time to be with us to contribute. And as I said, this is the beginning. So we do look forward to you actively contributing to the advancement of this network. Okay. So thank you all. Lovely to see many colleagues that I haven't seen in a while. Hopefully we can see you physically at some point, but please stay safe. And yes, we will be reaching out to all of you. So thank you very much for your time.
Take care of yourselves, people. Thank you. Gracias.